Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Harder Not Smarter podcast. Today, we're starting a new chapter, I guess you can say, of how we're going to be doing these podcasts. We're still going to be doing the guest interviews, but we're also going to be interweaving these one-on-one chat sessions where we're going to be going down a docket of current events to talk about what's going on, what's important, whether it's international pop culture, war, politics, people doing stupid shit, whatever the case might be. If it's a good topic, we'll talk about it. And to bring the audience into it, we'd also appreciate any topic suggestions you guys have. You're more than welcome to reach out to us on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can drop comments into whether you're watching this on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Drop comments in there. We can pull those questions and we can drop them into the docket each week that we're going to be doing. So what we'd like to do is have one episode a week with a guest interview and one episode where it's just Greg and I going down the docket of potential topics to see what we can get through. And so we have a huge list. I think it's about 10 different items. We'll see what we can get through. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. We're going to try and keep these to about 30 minutes. We'll see what you guys, the audience, enjoy. If you guys want us to go longer and provide more detail or go into more topics, we can do that. But we're going to start it at about 30 minutes. We're just going to go through and discuss a topic until we've kind of run it to ground. Then we'll go into the next one. So for today's topics, going down the docket, we have a couple that are more evergreen and then several that are much more current. So we have raising feral boys. I put feral in parentheses because we all know that boys will ultimately be feral to some level. The Electoral College, living overseas. Greg's overseas right now. I lived in Korea for a couple of years. Man, that thumbs up just keeps popping up. For anybody on YouTube, I don't know how to turn it off. SpaceX catching the super heavy booster with metal chopsticks, Ukraine and drones, Israel versus Iran, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iraq, and the woke left. Basically, they're just declaring war on everybody around them. UFOs and the Pentagon's sudden transparency around them. The use of the B-2 bomber to hit Houthi underground weapon storage facilities. The housing market crisis, or not so much of a crisis, fake crisis. U.S.-Mexico border, the rise of independent media. I put this on there because I saw a post from Sean Ryan a day or two ago. VP Harris's campaign is considering doing an interview with him, which is just crazy to think about, that a guy that really started getting big like 2 years ago is now getting presidential candidates weighing his opinion more so than like CNN and Fox and other stuff like that. They see the value in shows like this that have huge outreach. So I thought that was super interesting.
Dude, that's like Trump old Trump daddy being on Theo Vaughn's podcast.
Dude, that was great.
Whoa, that was wild.
Theo Vaughn calling Trump bro. Classic.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's that. Did you see? God, what is that comedian's name? But Trump was like, "Well, I'm mostly honest," and the comedian just started like busting out laughing. It was, I have to think of that guy's name, but it was hilarious. But yeah,
we'll have to find that link or that clip. And the last two items: TikTok's forced sale and Dan Crenshaw's psychedelic mental health treatment bill. He was just on Dr. Phil. I'm like, that's going to be really cool because I know we love talking about psychedelics, mental health, and combining it all. So getting a former team guy who's in Congress talking about these things, all really cool. So what we've done, got this handy dandy ball mason jar with each of those
top. Drink water. Did you grow up drinking water out of those?
Oh, I still do. They're great. I just bought another thing of them because they're so convenient for mixing just about everything. They're the right size. They're not too big. They don't fall over very easily, and they're actually pretty durable. Like I've knocked those things off the counter and they don't break. So yeah, good on Ball. If you guys want to be a sponsor, let's put this outward for you. Look at that. The Ball logo sponsor us. But each of those topics is on a strip of paper inside the jar. We'll pull out one at a time. We'll go through the topic and we'll get through as many as we can. We'll just keep a rough 30-minute timer on these topics and go through it. So let's go find out what number one is. Oh, there's also P. Diddy in there because Greg wanted to talk about P. Diddy.
Oh yeah,
I did that. Add that in there before I finished that, or after I finished that list.
Also, Andrew Scholes is the name of the comedian that did the interview. Yeah, so you'll I think you'd recognize him if you saw him. I can pull him up. Let me just. Did you get heart?
Oh, that's the thing. I was just holding the paper.
That is the first time that I've ever seen that.
Well, if you do two thumbs up, you get the fireworks. Boom. Celebration for topic number one: TikTok's forced sale. Okay.
All right.
So we're gonna.
This is Andrew Scholes.
I guess we'll get back to TikTok in a second. Who's Andrew Scholes?
Let's just. Can you see this?
I have a hard time doing it to them because I'm basically a truthful person, but and frankly, no, but frankly,
I know this guy. Yeah.
I do a thing called a weave, and there are those that are fair that say this guy is so genius, and then others would say, "Oh, he rambled." I don't ramble. If I start a story, what you do is you weave things and you do it. You have to have certain things. You need an extraordinary memory because you have to come back to where you started.
Yes.
A weave is only good
They
if
don't
you
give you
come
credit
back.
for that.
It's true.
You could go all the way over here and then
I
get
can
back.
go so far here or there, and I can come back to exactly where I started. Now, someday when you don't come back to where you started,
You're Biden.
then you say,
I mean, those guys are rifting because they're
time
all
doing it to them.
very New York.
Because I'm based, I'm
Yeah.
And so,
Oh yeah.
I mean, my wife's side of the family is from New York. Those guys will just shit on each other all day and have a great time with it. It's next level. It's basically like what they were trying to allude to in Gran Torino when Clint Eastwood was taking that kid to the barber, and the Clint Eastwood and the barber were just shit talking each other. He's like, "We're men. This is how we talk to each other. This is how we show affection."
I love that movie. That's a great Clint Eastwood movie. Probably his last. I mean, it's his last good one, right?
He's directed a bunch.
Yeah, he's directed a bunch, but I think that's the last really
that I can think of.
The last Clint Eastwood movie where he acted in. Anyways, great.
But
movie.
to pull a Trump right now, bringing it back because we're way over here. We're coming back to TikTok for sale. So TikTok, first off, if people aren't familiar with the platform and the situation, platform rose to fame during the pandemic. Like I can wholeheartedly say that TikTok probably wouldn't have been what it is today had the pandemic not happened. People stuck at home, just doom scrolling on their phone, watching these videos. Because basically the same thing as Vine. You remember Vines back in, I don't know, like 2010 or something like that? Those 8-second videos.
Who did Vine get bought out by somebody, or they just become obsolete?
I think they just fell away. They were too early for their time. They didn't have the pandemic to help them. And so TikTok is basically Vines that can go longer. And it was also at a better point in terms of people understanding social media and what you can do with it. And, everybody having camera phones, high quality cameras, the filters, the editing capability, you can just do some really cool shit. I'm pretty sure half the top music or half the top songs from 2020, 21, 22 were all because they got popular on TikTok and were just getting edited into videos. But it's entertaining. You can waste a whole bunch of time. The problem is, first off, it's a Chinese-owned company, and so anytime something's Chinese-owned, you get Huawei and those other things. People are like, "What's going on here?" Because nothing in China is ever separate from the government. And then the other problem is the algorithm in it apparently is geared towards just, especially in America, algorithm in China is different than algorithm in the US. And so in the US, it was just pushing stupid videos that were encouraging disobedience and bizarre behavior. Like there's all kinds of weird trends going on. People slapping pies in faces. And
have
stuff.
you ever seen was it TikTok that was getting grilled at a hearing, but it was like this old senator. He was like,
oh no, that was
talking.
Facebook.
He's like, was it Facebook?
That
He's
was
like, why
Facebook.
am I seeing like all of these like half naked ladies all over my feed? And it's like, come on, man, it's the algorithm. It's because you're clicking on it.
I mean, that might have been TikTok, but I mean, there were the Facebook hearings were atrocious. I mean, you're getting these senators and congressmen who are like the late end of the boomer generation, and they're trying to talk technology to one of the most tech savvy persons in the world, and they're just making fools of themselves. Like, their staffers failed them. The staffers should have been like, ask this question, do not deviate whatsoever, just word for word read this, because you're going to go off on some weird tangent. And that's really the problem that we're seeing with TikTok. Is it's so beyond the comprehension. I mean, the technology in general is so beyond the comprehension of the everyday person. And there's nothing against senators and congressmen. Like, they know their role. They're good at making law, and most of them, some of them are terrible, but largely their purpose is to create law and policy and stuff like that that's going to improve government. They're not meant to be tech savvy individuals. That's not part of the job requirement. And now you're putting them on a panel that's like, all right, we need you to scrutinize everything the tech industry is doing to make it safe for everybody. Like, this is a failing job.
Yeah, how about just like put some experts in there? You know, like are there any rules against that? Like them going, I don't know, but to me it's like, hey, maybe I'm not the one that should be asking questions. Maybe I should get an expert in here to actually, just go and question these people.
I will vet you to make sure you are a good person that is aligned with my values and morals and like legislative stance, and then just basically give you free reign to go figure out, fuck around and find out type thing. Come back and report to me what I should know. Give me the highlights. Give me the cliff notes, the social media for dummies version. Because watching these Senate hearings with the tech companies it's almost as painful as listening to the university presidents try and defend their stances on the Palestinian rights. Like, that's a whole different topic we can get into, but that was also super cringeworthy.
Yeah. Yep.
But to get back to the TikTok stuff,
we're weaving back to the TikTok stuff.
We're like
successfully
woke left, coming back to TikTok.
Yep.
Yeah. So Congress decided that TikTok it was a national security threat to allow TikTok to remain a wholly owned subsidiary by the Chinese company, which largely means owned by the Chinese government. Because they were also pulling a ton of data. They weren't verifying if kids were under 13. They weren't verifying if kids were under 18. And there's a whole bunch of internal documents that was coming out that was basically saying, we really don't care about any of these people. We just need more viewers. And so the government's like, we need to send this back. We obviously have I got to turn this thumbs up thing off. Can't just move my hands. Thumbs up everywhere. And so, they're like, we can't let it operate as it is, because it's social media in general is causing a lot of issues with the younger generations that have grown up entirely with it in their lives. And so we need to be able to fix this and be able to control the data. So the government's like, now you guys need to sell.
I can't confirm that this is true, but what I've heard is that like the TikTok that's in the US versus the TikTok that's in China is much different, where like the TikTok in China is like like the algorithm is like geared towards what you think would be, which is like, educational stuff, being
good students, being disciplined, respecting your elders, stuff like that. Where in the US it's like, let's create havoc.
I can't exactly, where it's just like the algorithm is like just give these people what's going to like make them little crack babies with their phones, and I don't know that that's true. I don't know that it's true, but that's what I've heard.
That's what they've claimed.
Yeah. I would love to see.
I feel like most people hear the word algorithm like, yeah, the algorithm does this. Like, myself included, guilty. I couldn't tell you what an algorithm actually looks like. Like, is it a line of code? Is it a mathematical sequence? Like, what? Everybody just talks about the algorithm is this or that. And I know that there's input, but from what I understand, you give the basic guidelines to the computer in the box, and you say, we want to maximize viewership and keeping people on here. And so the computer starts running these A/B tests and figures out, hey, if this thing is divisive, if it is sexual, if it is scandalous or rebellious, people like that type of stuff. And so it'll keep pushing those types of videos to you. And apparently in the documents that just got released about TikTok, it's actually even using AI to determine if the person on the video is attractive or not, and it'll push more attractive people, which again goes into that mental health thing of if all you're seeing are attractive people with lots of views doing crazy stuff, and you're a average looking person not doing much in your life in middle America, you're like, my life's terrible, I'm just going to go do some drugs.
Yeah, and worse yet, just like a young, impressionable individual, like in your teens, like those formidable years where you're like creating an identity, and that's what you see, and that's what's cool. Like that's just setting up our younger generation for heaps of trouble.
Yeah.
So
what's crazy though is we've gotten to the point of population saturation. So again, from the documents, it was saying that 95% of, I think it was teens, so 18 and under, are on TikTok at least once a month. So they basically hit maximum population saturation. So now they're all just competing for attention duration. So they're like, all right, we have 1 hour a month. How do we get that to 10 hours a month? How do we get that to 10 hours a week? And then all they're trying to do now is compete for attention because they can't get any more market share. They have everybody. So it's just turning into this, like, how do we make this more addictive to keep people on it?
Yeah, dude. I mean, TikTok is insane. I mean, it's a whole e-commerce site now.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, TikTok, let's give our final thoughts on TikTok so we can move on to the next topic. But
dumpster fire, but necessary for people like us in the entertainment space. Like, I know we're going to be dropping videos on TikTok to get traction, but it's the fucking devil, man. Like, I have a terrible relationship with social media.
Yeah, it's such a tricky situation because you love it because it's entertaining, mm-hmm. and you can't, like, if used correctly, like, there's a ton of good information being shared on there.
My wife just started a sourdough baking business largely because of stuff. Dude, she's killing it. And so get this, anybody want sourdough? We're probably not shipping super far right now, but getting started. In 24 hours, she had 13 orders. We're just like, oh shit! Like she's making 8 loaves of bread right now. She's never made more than 2 at a time. She's having to make 8 today.
That's awesome. How old is her starter?
100 years.
Wild.
Yeah,
that's
just
crazy.
Keeping up. We got it from my cousin who got it from somebody else, and I will put a big asterisk caveat next to it. We saw a video recently that was like, unless that starter has been in like the same environment for all 100 years, getting fed the same flour, it's not really the same starter anymore. Because think about it, it's just bacteria. It grows, it dies. You use it and stuff like that. And so if you're in different humidities, different temperatures, different acidity water, different flours, like it's going to start producing different changes in the bacteria. But it is cool though that this has lineage to a 100-year-old starter, which I think is entertaining. Another COVID start thing.
Okay, I'm gonna weave back into TikTok real quick because I just don't want this thought to escape me. But I think one potential solution, if there's anybody that's really tech savvy out there, is if you could build like a way to funnel the algorithm yourself. So like basically just like think of it like a veil that goes over TikTok or something like that, where you could help it filter out things so that like you're only being shown certain things. I mean, for parental guidance, like that actual parental guidance, that's not just turn on like an on and off button for parental guidance. It's like something where you can actually funnel in
The problem is that's going
specific
to turn into
content.
echo chambers, though, because people are going to be like, I only
That's a
want to
good
hear
point.
Trump stuff, or I only want to hear Harris stuff, or left wing or right wing. And so you're just going to start.
But people do that anyways. And the algorithm does that anyways.
Yes, the algorithm already does that. But if you're allowing people to self-select to that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm not saying
That's
you're
what we're talking
wrong. It's just a tenuous situation. Like, should you allow people to self-select into an echo chamber, or should you have an algorithm create an echo chamber for you without you even knowing it? Which is worse?
That's a really interesting
We
question.
just got deep.
I don't know what is worse. Yeah, self-selecting into like knowingly selecting yourself into an echo chamber, I think is probably worse. And I wasn't thinking about, because I like, to be quite honest with you, I just like hate talking politics. It's not like a fun conversation for me.
Except for Tim Sheehy, that was a fun conversation.
Well, okay, I like talking to because he's just a cool dude.
He's a good dude.
Like, yeah, he's just a good person, and he's done a ton of cool stuff. And he's I don't consider him a politician.
Well, he's not yet technically. He's just a candidate.
Yeah, he's gonna win.
He's just going big. Like, I've never gone. He's like, I've never gone for mayor or governor or congressional representative. No, I'm just going straight for Senate.
Yeah.
And he's going to win. I talked to some guy I met at a wedding. He's from Montana.
Let's see how...
And he's like, dude, he's like 10 points ahead in the polls right now.
Let's look it up. Let's look it up and see where he's at.
Tim Sheehy running for senator in Montana against, wait for it, drum roll.
Who cares? Because he's not going to win.
Well, you still want to know who he's running against. Who's the incumbent? It's got to say it, whatever you're reading.
Well, it's not. You can tell that I don't look at.
Google's like, are you sure you want to ask this question?
I don't. No, I'm not sure.
Especially Netherlands Google. They're like, why are you looking up American politics?
I think the incumbent, I think, is John Tester.
Okay. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Well, we tried.
You're not seeing any poll numbers, though?
No. My dad and I looked at it the other week, and he was ahead by a couple points at least. So.
As I said, the guy.
Oh, there we go. No, yeah. So here, I'll pull it up. Tester versus Sheehy. I can't read. Let's share this. $51 to 43.5.
Oh yeah, he's
got
almost 10 points. Yeah, so 7.5. That's right. Math. Yeah, 7.5 points. That's pretty substantial.
Yeah. This is why we don't do math in public, Kevin.
That's why I wear sandals. I can do math now. All right. We'll close that TikTok for sale. So I guess the final conclusion is it better to allow people to self-select into an echo chamber, or to have an algorithm unbeknownst to them, put them in an echo chamber? Which worse for
by a potential evil actor?
Yes.
You know,
by a third-party actor that doesn't really want to see it succeed.
Have your best interest in mind.
So, topic number 2.
Here we go.
Oh, nice. Boom.
Yeah.
Dan Crenshaw talking about psychedelics and introducing a bill on psychedelic treatment. So, actually, I think I still have this up. Boom, there it is.
Did that pass in 2023, right?
They're allowing certain things within the VA to do clinical trials. So, share screen. Share. All right, so we got Dan Crenshaw here talking with Dr. Phil.
Please say thank you for everything that you've done for this country, the sacrifice that you've made. What inspired you to propose this bill?
Appreciate you saying that. I will say all my PTSD comes from politics, not from the So we get stats every day. Sometimes it's 22 veterans a day. Sometimes it's 20. Sometimes it's 17. Perhaps there's some improvement, but obviously not much. And it's a really difficult problem to solve because you can't get inside someone's head, so we feel very helpless. And I'll I'll just tell you the story of how this happened to me, because I've been trying to get this legislation done for about 3 years. And I'm having dinner with a friend of mine, and he was blown up really bad in Marja in Afghanistan. He was in a vehicle, it was a roadside bomb, so he has no physical wounds, but he has severe traumatic brain injuries. Couldn't speak for a while, memory loss, harming his marriage, harming his career, just harming him. And he starts to tell me about his journey through psychedelics, specifically with the drug Ibogaine. In this clinic in Mexico, is a one-day treatment. It's basically 12 hours of hell. And you wake up from that completely changed, and changed in a very good way, not wanting any more substances, whether that's drugs or alcohol, and just feeling like you've been completely reset. I thought, well, that was an interesting conversation. I've never even heard of this. And so we drive back to our apartment in DC, and I get in the elevator, and I'm accosted by this gentleman. He goes, Mr. Crenshaw, I know who you are. Just give me 5 seconds. I tried to commit suicide multiple times. This treatment saved my life. You need to know about it. And I was like, how am I hearing about this exact same crazy thing like twice in one night? So it felt like that was a calling to actually do something about it. So the next step was simply looking at what's the proper next step, and legislatively speaking, to get this done. And we came up with a bill that's effectively instructs the DoD to use $10 million that we appropriated to them to either to do clinical trials according to FDA guidelines, which the FDA is currently writing, either through the DoD, Veterans Affairs, or other academic medical institutions.
Love it. That's awesome. So it was 2 summer, not this last summer, but the summer prior to that. Why am I blanking on the name? What's the big veteran organization, like the biggest one out there?
VFW. There's Veterans of Foreign Wars. There's the American Legion. There's the
American
VA.
Legion. That's it. Okay. So I was at the American Legion conference, and they had a talk on. There was a big emphasis on mental health, and there's a Stanford researcher there that presented his research on PTSD and Ibogaine, and just like the remarkable results that they were seeing.
Ibogaine is like ayahuasca, right?
I think it's very similar to ayahuasca.
It's a DMT based plant, though.
I believe so. If anybody can educate us in the comments, please do so.
While you keep talking, I'll look it up real quick.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously there's like some super encouraging.
Ibogaine is a psychoactive substance that comes from the root of the Tabernathi iboga plant and has psychedelic effects. Altered state of consciousness that is similar to dreaming while being fully aware. The experience has 2 phases: a visionary phase that lasts 4 to 6 hours, and a second introspective phase that can help people overcome fears and negative emotions. That's all from Google's AI overview, because Skynet's taking over the world.
Skynet is taking over the world. Awesome. Well, that's good. That's a good breakdown. Anyways, yeah, there's a ton of good alternative treatments out there. There's a ton of them. And, most recently, the FDA struck down MDMA assisted psychotherapy, which was a huge bummer. That's one to me where it's like, you always hear about everybody talks about how Big Pharma is like out for themselves.
Well, it's like weed being listed as a Schedule 4 narcotic. Is that right? Schedule 4, Schedule 1. Schedule 4, I think, is the worst. Yeah. Basically, it means, I think I have that correct. Schedule 4 being the highest, most restrictive. And it basically means that there is zero medical use for this product. To give you an idea, like cocaine, heroin, those are all Schedule 3s, like super controlled, but there's a high use of it. And basically, there's just that smear campaign. I'm pulling most of my information from Joe Rogan on this, but it goes back to William Randolph Hearst putting a smear campaign on hemp and combining hemp with marijuana, even though they're 2 separate plants, and saying they're all bad. They're smoked by rapists and Mexicans. Nothing against Mexicans. That's what they said back then. They didn't like them. And just like rude criminals use this, but really he just wanted to smear hemp because it was going to compete with his paper mills, wood paper mills. He had substantial investments in that, and he didn't want hemp to interfere with his finances. So he smeared marijuana, which isn't even actually marijuana was its own thing. It was a tobacco related thing. Smeared cannabis and put it down this huge prohibitionary state for like 100 years when it has a ton of medicinal benefits and health benefits.
Yep. No, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like MDMA, there's the studies out there are, and the FDA themselves labeled it as a breakthrough drug. I think back as early or as most recently as like 2019 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden it's this like great drug that is going to help people with their PTSD. There has not been a drug that has been approved for treatment of PTSD in I think over 20 years. So there's like no movement in that industry. So finally we have like this glimmer of hope, and then they strike it down and set it back. I mean, 5 to 10 years probably from ever reaching the hands of patients, which is such a shame.
I say yes, but I think the tenacity of the the post 9/11 veteran generation, I think we'll just be like, all right, we'll go full insurgency. We'll take over the VA in sense of like, we'll actually start putting our own people in there. Cause I mean, how many, I mean, you're medically trained through the military. How many medical doctors and practitioners in the military that served within, especially the special operations community, like Jesse Greer, like get people like him into the VA and just start be like, all right, these policies are stupid. These clinical trials were terrible. Let's redo these and let's get these things into the people's hands that need it.
Yeah. I don't know enough about how the FDA works, but I think the problem is that this is at the FDA level, and in order for it to be used in the VAs, the FDA has to approve it. So like while the VA is, I think, very instrumental in the actual studies, it still has to pass through those entities. And so like my whole thing is like, who's lobbying against MDMA being used as a
Big Pharma?
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I hate being a conspiracy theorist. We were talking about it yesterday with Samson, right? Like what like 15% of conspiracy theories end up being true, but you can make a conspiracy theory about anything. I could connect the dots on,
but it's not really conspiracy when it's like, you can just follow the money. How much money is getting paid out to Big Pharma for narcotics and other related drugs to treat these things? Because MDMA, I'm pretty sure it's old enough that it's outside of its patent, because it's only 25 years, I believe. So that can be a generic drug. And if the pharma company doesn't own that patent, or even if the patent is still effective, there's only one company that owns it. So they're either going to have to use generic, which isn't going to pay them as much, or they don't have the rights to the original patent anyway. And so they're going to, if it's effective, why would they want it to compete with their bottom line? Because it all comes down to the shareholders. They need to continue to show growth.
Yeah. And then the other problem is that you don't need to take it forever. Like the hope is that you do like 2 or 3 rounds of MDMA assisted therapy and like you're good.
That's what Dan was saying, that his buddy did one 12-hour, journey through hell, introspective plant-based medicine journey. And it came out significantly better. Like what would that do to the pharma industry? Like, if you take this one 12-hour treatment, you're pretty much good. Like you don't need alcohol, you don't need cocaine, you don't need heroin, you don't need these other drugs. You're just gonna go about life. Pharma would be like, well, fuck. It's like GE buying up the patents on light bulbs that last forever. There's no business in light bulbs that last forever, so they just bury that shit. And that's a true story. You guys can look it up. You can Google it. You can find it. Like you can find that patent. They exist. Light bulbs that never go out.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Whoa. That's awesome. Well, to wrap this one up, we've back into Dan Crenshaw.
Man, we learned so much from Trump this morning, or this evening for you.
Dude, bobbing and weaving, man. I'm not a Trump fan at all. But
he has some great one-liners. I'm a mostly honest individual.
I'm a mostly. Yeah.
That is a very honest statement. I'm a mostly honest individual. Because there is no quantification to what mostly means. Is it 51%? Is it a super majority at 66%? Is it 75%? Like what?
Nobody knows, but it's provocative.
I mean, if it's democracy, that's a 51% statement. Only 51% of his statements. I mean, I would agree that 51% of the stuff he says is true. I would give him that.
Maybe. I don't know. Probably.
I feel like that.
I'll give it to him.
51%.
I'll give it to him.
That's a pretty low bar. 50, like literally every other word is true. It can be one sentence true, one sentence false.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is a factual statement of him saying, I am a mostly honest person.
Yeah. Oh, Papa Trump. Good for you. Good for you, man.
Man, my voice is terrible right now. I've got the plague. Traveling sucks. Having kids is rough. My little boy brought it back to me. The Italian New York plague. Wherever he got it from.
Damn petri dish, dude.
Yeah.
All right.
But overall, yes. Psychedelics, huge benefit, net gain for the veteran community, for the mental health space. I fully support this. There has to be better options out there other than SSRIs and other.
Yeah, and also like, that and like, hey, let's not make people. Although like I've heard really good things about traveling to like Costa Rica and places like that, but like let's make this accessible inside the United States so that people don't have to travel those long distances. Like, you know, that potentially someone that can't afford these treatments or that those trips could go down to their MD and be like, hey, like I need this.
Big caveat here. Big, but it needs to have some regulation. Because I remember I was working with a woman who was doing ketamine assisted therapy, and that shit got way out of control. Because ketamine is a Schedule 2, I think. Basically, it's the same level as Tylenol with codeine, testosterone treatment, stuff like that. It's pretty low because it's been around for so long. We understand to a high degree the effects and the benefits and how the dosing of all of it works. And it just happened. So it's a anesthesia that because doctors love experimenting on themselves, just like Johns Hopkins doing a bunch of cocaine back in the day. We can touch on that story later. Ketamine had some really beneficial effects of disassociation and helping people overcome issues. Well, that turned into, all right, let's turn this into a whole industry. And during COVID, they were literally mailing out ketamine lozenges and ketamine nose sprays. And some of them aren't even like full ketamine. They're like ketamine derivatives with a bunch of heavy metals. And people were doing a Zoom psychiatrist. I don't remember what the fuck the difference is.
Psychiatrist.
One of them can give drugs. One of them get drugs. One of them can't. One's a fake doctor.
I think that some psychologists can prescribe, but it takes a special licensure in maybe like specific states. But anyways, it was likely a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner. They did a Zoom call from their couch, literally in their sweats, not doing anything. Like, yeah, I've got these problems. I need to work through it. They put on an eye mask, take the lozenge or squirt the nose spray, and they just like go into a trip by themselves in their room. And then their follow-on treatment is again a Zoom call. Like you're really not going to get over things. You're not going to solve your deep-seated mental trauma and issues doing that by yourself. And then the other extreme, if you wouldn't want to do it from home, Kaiser Permanente, this isn't a dig against you, it's just how you would do things. Blanking on her name. Who was the woman that I was working with that came on the podcast? Christy Myers. Right? Yeah, Christy Myers was telling me that she had the best line. Doctors don't like patients crying. So doctors and mental health do not go well together. So Kaiser Permanente's treatment that they offered was like you go into a OR type, or like think of the general practitioner. You go in there, you have the bed with the butcher paper roll or butcher paper, across the bed. It crinkles when you get on it. They would give you the drug, put the eye mask on, and then just leave you in a sterile doctor's room by yourself to again work through your problems. And then they would like escort you out a back door because they don't want to see
they don't want the patients in the waiting room to see other people crying as like they're working through their issues. So that was we don't want to have a repeat of that. There needs to be some better implementation than what we saw with ketamine.
Is there a person, celebrity? Let's make it a celebrity. Is there a celebrity that you'd like just love to sit there and trip balls with?
Morgan Freeman.
That's a good one.
Dude, just
That's
narrate to me what's going on in your head right now.
Yeah, just talk. Just talk to me.
You talk.
Yeah.
And right now, you're probably seeing a lot of colors spreading across your vision.
You know, it's the antithesis of that would be Roseanne.
Oh, that would be
terrible.
That'd be nails on a chalkboard.
Actually, although I don't know. Like,
she might have some good dick. She does have some funny lines.
Yeah, she could be funny. But like her, all I'm envisioning in my head is like hearing her sing the national anthem, and like that just like going through your head while you're on psychedelics. That would be miserable.
I don't think the national anthem would, like, very patriotic individual, but I don't think the national anthem is something that would.
Have you heard her sing the national? Have you heard it?
No. Are you bringing that up right now?
No, I'm not going to bring it up. I'm going to.
We'll spare the audience that one.
Yeah.
All right. So who's yours? Mine. Other than Morgan
that's a really good one. Morgan Freeman's a really good one. I'm trying to think of like someone that would like keep me. Like, I mean, who's like, I know that Morgan Freeman went on to narrate Planet Earth, but like even the first person
that
who
British
like narrated the first, yeah, that would be a really good one too.
I should know that name, but I don't.
Yeah, he's good,
or at least someone that has. I mean, it'd probably have to be a comedian, just to talk about random funny shit.
Okay, well, I mean, if we're talking about like just like we want something like a fun one, I would love for Theo Von to be there. I think Theo Von, he's dude. So
I mean, I feel like we're already like all you need to do is do drugs, and you're already going to be listening to Theo Von also tripping because he does not look sober on any of his shows. This isn't. This isn't an accusation. He's sober.
He's 100% sober. Yeah,
that's just
that is au natural, man. Like he's in recovery, and so yeah, that's him, man.
Good
that
for
is him.
Yeah. Okay, so he's in recovery. So this is like residual drugs.
Yeah, if you listen to some of his like early stuff, it like talks about like his like crazy upbringing and like yeah, he's got some crazy bender stories that he'll talk about. Just gotta look it up. Pretty funny.
Fair enough. All right, we've gone a little long, but we'll do one more because I think 3 topics is good. We're at 43 minutes right now, so
let's try to rip one out.
We got this. What do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be something serious.
That'd be rough. It'd be fun to have a good one or a fun one.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have fun with this one. U.S.-Mexico border crisis.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be
coming from San Diego. This is going to be a fun topic.
Oh, I also think so. This is actually sort of relevant because I think that Kamala just got like hammered on Fox. I think it was on Fox News, or maybe it's like a Fox News reporter or something like that. And one of the big topics was the border, and him basically just saying that they've boloed, and
I saw
just like completely
great. I mean, if we're touching on Harris real quick, I saw that there was a Fox interview. I forget the guy's name that was doing it, but what was the? Oh, it was saying that it was over 70% of America thought we were headed in the wrong direction, and he asked her, "What is your response to?" I think it was like 79%. He just said over 70, but the image that came up was set with 79% of America thinks that we're headed in the wrong direction. I don't know what the general. These questions are always a little skewed because it could be, who are you asking and what is wrong direction? Is it economics? Is it social? A whole bunch of things. But skewed question. Her response though was terrible. It was basically, I mean, he was like, you've been in office. How is having you become president going to, change this? And she's like, well, Donald Trump has been running for office she's like, yeah, but you've been in the office. And she's like, but you know what I mean? He's like, no, I don't know what you mean. Please explain. It was just like this. Politicians, man, it's become a game of how much can you, again, not siding with Trump, not siding with Harris. My philosophy on the presidential race and presidents in general is I can probably count on one hand, outside of the time in the military, when they were commander in chief, I can count on one hand the number of presidential policies that have actually affected me directly. Like, worry about your mayor, worry about your city council, your state representatives, even your congressional representatives, more important, your governor. The president really doesn't affect you that much, but we get so caught up in it. But to the point is, politicians have become this game of like, how much can I say without saying anything at all? It's like this double.
Yeah. And yeah. And I think for the Harris campaign, it's like, for her, it's like, you just need to not talk, like, because you can only hurt yourself by opening up your mouth at this point, I think. Because I honestly think that she's probably ahead and that she's going to win. So it's like, at this point, you just got to let like Trump talk and like,
I mean, it's a bold strategy.
You know what I mean? I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. And in terms of that question too, so like people, I see a lot of people, obviously like my following and your following is like leans like very far right. And like, I would say that I'm like, yeah, I'm like super, super moderate. And what I see is like, people make these excuses like, hey, it's been this way. And yeah, it has been this way, but they don't rule the Senate, right? I don't think that, so they don't have majority like over the Senate and the House. I think it's split right now. So
yeah, it's at least very close.
Effective, like getting anything passed is like, you're at a stalemate. So like, if people are saying like you didn't do anything, like we're trending in the wrong direction. Like, yeah, like we are trending in the wrong direction. However, like that's no fault of the current administration, I don't think. You know what I mean? Yeah, like obviously
it's very easy for people. It's very easy for people to equate everything to the president. Like, well, the president's economy, the president created this many jobs. Like, not really. The Congress did a lot of that. Governors did a lot of that. But we give all the credit or all the blame to the president. I get it, leadership, but we're a fractionalized government for a reason. We have the executive, we have the judicial, we have the legislative. There it is. The legislative branch. And so, each of them have responsibility of their own and they kind of oversee one another. So you can't give all the blame and all the credit to one of them. And so I think it's just like this conflated thing that we're just able to pile everything onto the presidential race. I think we really need to go back to the old, like we need to push more to the states. Like we're the United States of America. We're not the federal government of America. I think that we've just gone so far away from states' rights because we're too big. Like 300 something million people. That is far too many people for a centralized government to control and to make policy for and to give out money for. It's too much. It's not sustainable. And that's why we had all the states. It's like the federal government's there to basically deal with international stuff, levy an army or levy taxes, create an army, and protect us. Let the states kind of handle everything else. And then we've gotten away from that. But we've gotten away from the topic of U.S.-Mexico border, weaving back.
Weaving back. So that goes back to the whole policy thing again, like where I think that there was some sort of, I think that the Republicans struck down and it's probably because the Democrats put other things into the bill that would have passed, like if this border patrol policy were to have been enacted. And so that has been like, that's one of the reasons why like nothing has like really like nothing positive has happened at the border.
Well, we've also restricted states from policing their own. Like in Texas, they tried building a temporary wall using shipping containers, and then the federal government stepped in and made them tear it down. But the federal government wasn't supporting them in dealing with the problem. So it's just like, well, what do you want? You're telling me I can't do this, but then you're not doing anything on your end. And then there's California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas that all touch the border. So you have 4 different states, and each of them have their own border patrol. Like California has CBP, California Border Patrol. I imagine Arizona, New Mexico, Texas all have some version of their own. And so you have a very fragmented approach to solving this, because the federal government hasn't really been able to give a clear direction of how we're going to handle it. It's a massive border. It was like 1,500 miles. And then we're also trying to crack down on Mexico. Like, we can solve this whole thing. Other than Mexicans getting across the border, we can stem all the other stuff, because the southern Mexico border is like this big, obviously not to scale, but relative to this big on a map, it's Central America. Is it Guatemala touches?
Ooh, getting in geography. I think it is.
It's one of those, but it's like a couple 100 miles, and they could easily stop the flow there. But the problem is the Mexican government's having its own issues where they're a cartel state. They had I think it's in Guerrero, or one of the states in Mexico. They had a mayor killed within 6 days of taking office, and then another mayor nearby was killed like a week before. And so you can't have a government that functions when cartels are just killing anybody that steps in their way. And they have so much money and weapons. They're walking around with basically SEAL and Green Beret level tactical rifles. Like, they're not even ARs; they're just straight M4s, with optics and extended magazines and all these other things.
I think that that some of those units are actually probably very well trained.
Oh, 100%.
And
I mean, what is it? not 10th Mountain, 10th Special Forces Group, 7th.
Yeah, they go down it, dude.
Let's go talk about 7th Special Forces Group for a second.
Yeah, let's not go down that route. Let's not go down that route.
I mean, the SEALs, we have our own problems. We have our own problems. But it is fun to talk about 7th Special Forces Group. What is it, like 50% of them are married to Colombian women?
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty fair statistics. Yeah,
we'll go with 49%. So it's not mostly. It's less than mostly.
49% are married, and then like 75% have families down there or something like that.
Separate families, additional families.
Yeah. Like the other 25% just have additional wives or something like that. Not actually true. 7th Group, you guys are awesome. It's all in good fun. All in good fun.
But to the Mexican border crisis solutions. I mean, I feel like you need a wall at this point, because it's no longer about just illegals coming over here and taking our jobs and all that thing. But they're not taking.
No, I think like the jobs we have actually a good thing.
But to what we were talking about earlier with Israel, and I know Sean Ryan was just talking about this on one of his episodes, is without restricting people coming in, and Afghanistan being back to what it is, they have. So it used to be, very fragmented terrorist groups. Now they've all kind of come together and have safe space in Afghanistan. They're shuttling people over to Central and South America who are coming up through the border. And so now you get a bunch of basically terrorist sleeper cells getting into the country. Weapons are not in short supply here. It's not hard to find weapons. So now you have a bunch of people spread throughout the country because A, they can get around. B, we've been shipping them all around to the cities. Texas is sending up to Chicago and DC and everything. So now you have these people getting dispersed evenly throughout the country. They get some weapons. You don't need to have another 9/11 Twin Towers flying a plane into it. Just look at what happened to Israel on October 7th. You have a bunch of people with weapons spread throughout the country having simultaneous attacks. That is a huge, huge national security issue.
So one of the most terrifying things I think I've ever came across on like a national security front. I forget who told me this, but like just like think about this. Think about how easy it would be to rent an apartment in the United States
Or take one over.
Well, just rent, just yeah. Or
No,
take
I was
hotel.
going over to what was it, Astoria or not? That's in Oregon.
No,
Aurora.
why am I
Aurora, Colorado.
Aurora, yeah. But this isn't like, this is like, I'm talking about just like terrorism in general. But like how crazy of an idea is it that like in every big city in the United States there is like a bomb that is sitting in a big apartment building, that could like some state sponsored attack where they just like say, let's
but you don't even need a bomb, because bombs are tough. You need to get them across borders and getting materials. It's harder. You don't even need that. Like, if you just get 10 guys who are of the philosophy that America is a terrible place, you can get some rifles for $1,500. So 10 guys, that's $15,000. That is a drop in the bucket to what Iran spends abroad. And then you have, 10 guys in every major city: San Francisco, LA, San Diego, Washington, Chicago, New York. And on the same day, at the same time, they each just start their own attack. None of them know about one another. They don't even know the others that are going on, that there's going to be a widespread attack. They're just told, on this day, at this time, start an attack. And now you're having a dispersed attack going across the country at the same time. If there's concerts going on, like the Nova Festival in Israel, a whole bunch of other things like that. We saw what one guy can do in Las Vegas with a rifle. Imagine if you had 10 of them.
Yeah.
And now you're doing it in
terrifying.
10 different cities.
Yeah.
So
And
that's why the border crisis is becoming such a big issue.
Yep. I think that's a great point.
That wasn't a very fun, happy topic.
That wasn't fun at all. That wasn't. I was gonna loop it back into something like a little bit more. Well, I mean, I think it's like, let's not take for granted the fact that like, most of us are relatively safe living here in the United States.
Yep.
The border crisis is like, it's an issue because we want to make sure that everybody continues to be safe in the United States. But yeah, I mean, I think I think if I've learned anything over the past like 3 or 4 years, it's that like anything could happen. Like I never thought that Russia would like, full on invade Ukraine. Like I think that we're probably we could look back on this and be like, okay, this is the start of World War III. I think it looks very differently because it's being fought with a lot of proxies. But, I think
that's how World War I was. It was a bunch of little states getting in and then the bigger states having to jump in. That is exactly what happened with the Peloponnesian War. Athens and Sparta didn't want to fight each other, yet there they were.
Yep. Yeah, no. And so, I mean, to definitively say it, like, I don't know that it is, but it very well could be. Like I wouldn't, if I look back on this and they said, okay, the start date for World War III was, whenever Russia invaded Ukraine, like I wouldn't be surprised. Cause I mean, when like to your point, back in 1941 during World War II, like nobody like definitively said, okay, we are starting World War II. It was like something that they look back on, like, a couple years in, like, okay, like this was probably the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And, we could potentially be at that point right now where, and there's a huge inflection point, right?
It's the same
with everything going
Hitler,
on.
Everyone was trying to appease him because they're like, he's moving really quickly. He's really strong. We'll just try and work out a peace deal with him to get him to stop. Because once he gets what he wants, he's going to stop, right? I mean, Putin's kind of the same thing. If we just give him Ukraine, he's going to stop, right? I don't know. Is he? Why would he?
The population thing that Samson brought up the other day was interesting.
It's a problem.
I had
Peter Zeihan talking about how their population's aging rapidly. China's in a similar boat, but that was self-induced.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we just keep going down these dark topics.
Let's weave back in.
Maybe we can just talk about Trump for a second, lighten it up before we sign off.
Oh no, let's not don't get me started on Trump, Daddy. Don't get me started on Trump, Daddy.
Well, let's do one fun side. What is the Netherlands perspective of America now that you've been there for like 6 months? Like what is the Netherlands lens of what America is like?
So there's been a few people that like as we've been buying a house, obviously you meet realtors and stuff like that, and they ask you, how long do you plan on living here and stuff. And we don't really have like any end date in mind, but when we tell them like, we could be here indefinitely, they're like, whoa, like that's crazy. Cause like, this is the Netherlands. Like, are you sure about that? I think the quality of life here is really good. But I think, America is seen as exciting and there's a lot going on. So I think it still has that sort of allure. Like when I told them, when we talk to anybody about Trump, not to talk about politics, but like, they're like, I cannot, like, why is that guy, why is he a candidate? Like they're like completely blown away that he is still in the running. And I think that is a sort of a little bit of a black eye on the American people in their eyes.
Well, I when I was in Italy, I was talking to a guy, and he put it great. He's like, the American politics is sad, but it's also hilarious. Like it's fun and exciting to watch what's going on. He's like, Italian politics, it's just sad. Like there's nothing good about it. It's just corrupt. No one wants to be a part of it. It's a terrible system. It is what it is.
That's
that's
probably
valid.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's probably the best explanation I've ever heard. I feel like probably most countries would probably agree with that.
And then he showed me a picture of him with Hunter Biden. I'll give a plug to him. It was David 2 is the name of the store in Florence. They're a leather shop. He had pictures with, these guys know everybody. Like he had pictures with Nancy Pelosi, with Hunter Biden, with Donald Trump Jr., whole bunch of people. Like they know the DC circuit. They come out to DC every year for like a leather show. They had some really nice stuff. It was like $4,500 for a jacket, but yeah, it was some quality stuff. But yeah, it was funny. He also had a picture with not Tito Ortiz, blanking on his name, Mohawk MMA UFC guy.
Chuck Liddell.
Chuck Liddell. He had a picture with Chuck Liddell. The guy was like, dude, you guys know everybody. So that was the Italian perspective of at least yours is sad and entertaining, where ours is just sad and nobody cares. Like nobody's following Italian politics.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So on that, I think that's a good wrap for our first Docket list episode. I know we went twice as long as we were talking about, but
yeah,
we'll have to rein it in maybe a little bit.
Or not. We'll see.
But yeah, we'll do this next week. We'll see if any of these topics are still relevant. We'll touch on them then, maybe, if they get drawn. And we'll add some new ones to the list. So I hope everyone enjoyed this new design, this new structure. Appreciate you all listening in.